You're cycling from Germany to India. I'm sure you've seen a lot of stuff that one doesn't normally come across.
And I was standing at the Pakistan border. The policeman asked, do you have any with you? Like, no. Okay, then we give you.
At what point does the trip become a little dangerous?
I got bitten by a scorpion. I was just sitting down for my morning meditation and then I noticed like a huge pain in my leg. It burns. I think I would have died.
I'm very curious about the interiors of Pakistan. What is specifically beautiful?
One thing that surprised me about Pakistan was actually how big the Hindu community is there. And they all want to go to India.
What is crossing borders like? Especially when you go into Iran, Pakistan, India.
When I crossed the border from Iran into Pakistan, they said you cannot cycle here at all. You'll basically be a slow-moving target.
Have you done anything crazy? Like when you were much younger?
I was on, I think, 6 or 7 different substances at once. I just completely can't remember anything that happened that night. The next morning, I woke up in an entirely different city and I had no idea how I even got there.
Damn. When you put yourself through that many substances, something has to change in the head.
My whole experience of life shifted. I have a technology within myself to create all of these things that I was getting from just by meditation.
Konstantin Zülske has one of the most interesting stories that I've come across on the show. He cycled from Germany to India. So imagine all the different countries he's gone past. Imagine all the stories and experiences that he shared with us on today's episode. Imagine all the human perspectives he's shared. But also, there's a slightly dark edge to this conversation. That edge will come through towards the end of the conversation. It's one of those conversations that went to adventurous places, as well as dark places, as well as spiritual places. Lots of power-packed perspective on this particular conversation. I hope you enjoy the special episode of The Ranveer Show. Konstantin Zülske.
Ranveer.
How are you, bro?
Doing great. It's an incredible pleasure being here.
It's an incredible pleasure speaking to you. I'm having a very intense, angry day. People are only getting to see the podcast, but you know that there's a lot of anger inside me right now, but I'm sitting in front of you and I'm feeling calmer.
Oh, thank you. Well, I already got your vibes. I was just sitting here meditating for a while and trying to calm myself down. I hope I calmed you down by that as well.
When I get to meet people like you, it is a very calming experience because usually when you live in an Indian city, you only meet people who are driven about careers or emotions. It's one of the two always. And then because of my show, I've met people who are driven by life experiences. I think I'd put you in that bracket, and these are the podcasts I look forward to the most because it's just like meeting someone on your travels and then exchanging travel stories. So is that a fair assessment?
I think there are these two characteristics in all the people everywhere. But I think, people from Europe, they have economically, a little bit better situation sometimes, a lot of them. So they're not so much driven on money or people can just go cycling the world without thinking about the consequences in their future. Otherwise, I think many people in India, if you think about cycling the world and if you don't really secure your finances, you might land on the street. So a lot of people have this more, money-focused mindset here. I agree on that. But there are different kinds of people everywhere in the world. So.
You've also spent a lot of time in India?
I did. I've been here for probably 1.5 years by now. I was mainly living at the Isha Yoga Center near Coimbatore. So my main time in India that I spent was in the ashram. So that was like, a very grounding experience itself. But traveling in India, I've not done so much, only South India mainly. Now this is the first time I'm in North India and now first time in Maharashtra.
Can you speak Tamil?
Not a word. No, only sapat. I know that means food, I think.
Okay. The reason I wanted to have this conversation with you was because of this journey that you're doing from Germany to India.
Sure.
You're cycling from Germany to India. Okay. I don't even know where to begin this.
Germany.
I want to ask you the whys related to it, but I'm sure you've seen a lot of stuff that one doesn't normally come across.
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to begin with the why? Why are you doing this? And how long does it take to cycle from Germany to India?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been a very passionate cyclist. Like when I was in university back then, my university was like 40 kilometers from my place in my hometown, so I always used to cycle there and back. Every day I would cycle like 80 kilometers. Not every day, but sometimes I would do that.
80 kilometers.
Yeah,
Okay.
like there and back. So, but I've also done some smaller trips around Europe. As soon as I had my bicycle, I was going through Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Germany. Not on this scale, but like 1 or 2 months, just like camping, cycling somewhere.
As in, you've cycled from Germany to the Scandinavian countries?
Yeah. Or
Damn.
I went there by bus and then I cycled back once. Yeah. So I've done smaller tours like that, but nothing on this scape and size, you know. But I always dreamed of traveling the world, especially on a bicycle, because I've always been a passionate cyclist. And I studied soil science in university. I studied geography actually, but then later on I specialized into soil science. So yeah, when Sadhguru started this Safe Soil movement, which I'm supporting during the cycling ride, I was extremely happy because suddenly he and the Isha Foundation gave me a platform on which I could share about soil, because I always knew soil extinction is the problem. But I never really had any means to talk about it, or I never had like an organization behind me, you know, which takes that up. So yeah, when that happened, I was in the ashram at that time. Then I decided, okay, now is the time to do it. I went back to Germany and then started a whole
you're
cycling
doing
trip.
it to raise awareness about soil extinction.
That's the thing, yeah.
Okay.
So support the Safe Soil movement.
In short, can you explain what the problem with soil is right now and why the average everyday person should even be concerned?
So see, the Safe Soil movement is a global movement driven by volunteers. It was launched by Sadhguru. But we're essentially trying to raise awareness all around the globe for all the people across every nation about the soil extinction problem. We're talking about soil extinction because the United Nations scientists are now saying that 52% of the soil on the planet is already degraded. And just 25 years from now, it will be 90% of the soil which is gone on the planet. So that has so many implications for all the ecological problems that we have, you know, water scarcity, food security, livelihoods of farmers, and you know, even climate change. So many things are connected to the soil issue. Recently, only people were only talking about climate change and these kind of things. Nobody was really talking about soil. We now shifted that focus, and so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm cycling to universities and schools, and I'm talking to them about the soil extinction issue.
So if no one does anything about the soil extinction issue, what kind of world will we live in 20 years' time?
We must really understand that soil is a finite resource. And every year we're losing 12 million acres of soil. That's the size of Greece. I've cycled Greece, believe me, it's a big country. So they are now saying that in just 25 years from now, we might produce 40% less food on the planet.
It's like the beginning of Interstellar.
Yeah, pretty much. That movie is, when I saw that movie, I was like, that's pretty on point, man. There's also, you know, Interstellar has this huge issue on loss of biodiversity. That's basically what they're talking about. Scientists are saying that right now we're losing 27,000 species every year going extinct. And these are mainly all these microbes which live in the soil, the bacteria, fungi, all these soil microbes are going extinct because they're losing their habitat, they're losing their organic content. And if these species all die out, it'll be even harder to restore the soil back to the original health, because we need these species to, you know, work for the soil health.
So effectively, if no one does anything about it, then in 25 years' time, there's going to be a shortage of food in the world.
It's a downward spiral. It's not just about the food, it's also about water scarcity. Depleted soils cannot hold any water, and makes the you know, land more prone for droughts, floodings as well. You know, Indian rivers are right now decreasing on 8% per year. 8% per year Indian rivers are decreasing. It's a huge amount. I mean, you know, just another 20, 25 years, there won't be any rivers left if this doesn't stop. I've cycled all these. This is a problem in all these countries where I cycled. I've seen this, like when I was in Pakistan, the Indus River, how it has decreased. If you just look it up on Google Maps, actually, you can very easily see it.
Which other countries have you been in?
I traveled through Iran mainly 2 months, and Turkey. All these are very dry countries, you know. If there's no organic content in the soil, that's what I'm talking about. Water will very easily just go away.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Let's talk about the experiences and then come back to the soil as well.
Sure.
I want to begin in Germany. Where does it actually begin in Germany? Like, you start from Leipzig?
Yeah, my hometown is actually Jena, which close to Jena. I'm from a small village in Germany. You wouldn't know it. Yeah. So I started in my hometown. I started cycling with 2-3 friends of mine. They came along with me for the first couple of days, and then after that I was on my own. And then pretty soon I left Germany, because anyway I live in East Germany, and then I was in Czechia already, Czech Republic. I cycled through all these Eastern European countries.
Is it dangerous?
No, Europe is not dangerous.
So at what point does the trip become a little dangerous?
It actually became dangerous when I was in entering the Mediterranean area, like Croatia, Montenegro, Albania. And not because of any people or animals around. It was simply because there was a heat wave going on when I was cycling. That was in June, July, that kind of time. And it was continuously every day 45, 46 degrees. You cannot cycle like that in 45, 46 degrees. It's so there were some days I just got so sunburned, and yeah, you really got to manage your water supply. So sometimes I don't know, I put like 10 liters of water on the bicycle being really heavy. You know.
What's the charm of going around on a cycle? That you get to absorb the environment?
Yeah, that's what I keep telling people. Like, if you're on a bicycle, you just have that perfect speed of traveling, where you, like, as opposed to a car or a motorcycle, like where you're just sitting in the vehicle and you're just rushing through all these countries, you're on the same level with the people. Like, you're having all these street interactions all the time. You know, people can just very easily stop you and give you some food or talk to you. So you're on the same mode of transport as the local people are. That makes it a very fun experience.
How often does that happen, where people just stop you and give
all
you
the
food?
time.
In every country?
In Europe, it didn't happen so much, but as soon as I became an exotic foreigner, you know, and it started to happen in Turkey already, and then in Iran, daily that happened. At least 5 times in a day, people like stopped me on the road. They drove their cars next to me and pushed me to the side of the road, and I was standing there like, okay, what do you want? And then they just gave me a bottle of water or some whatever snacks they had or something like that.
Kanafe. They give you some Iranian cheesecake.
In Iran, it was usually pomegranate, actually.
Oh, like fruit.
Yeah, that, you know, the pomegranate, you know, that is like, if I hear the word Iran, I think I will forever associate it with pomegranate. That is the first thing which comes to my mind. I ate so much pomegranate in Iran, you have no idea.
Because you're cycling through all these countries gradually, I think it's very cool how you notice the slight changes in the way the people look.
Yeah, and the vegetation.
And the vegetation.
The flora, the fauna, everything. The food even. The way people dress. Yeah, everything is happening so slowly. See, that's what I mean. That's what I love about cycling. It's the traveling experience.
So when you're going from Europe till India, you're noticing these small changes until all the cultures like kind of become one effectively.
Yeah.
Maybe what I'll ask you is, what's the commonality in human beings in all these countries?
Yeah, that was actually the thing that surprised me most. This hospitality, and no matter where you go, like no matter what country, like you go to Armenia or Azerbaijan, Iran or Israel, India or Pakistan, it really doesn't matter. People are so nice and welcoming everywhere. Whenever even in Germany, which is the, you know, repetition of being one of the coldest countries. But even there, if people see you being a traveler on a bicycle on the road, they will just be so open to host you and share their culture. It's really, you know, people have this mindset sometimes that if you go to Pakistan, people are in a certain way. But they're really not. If you go there, you will just be surprised and how many varieties of people are there anyway, and how hospitable and friendly they'll be. It's amazing.
What was the most dangerous situation in this whole trip?
There are 1 or 2 or 3 situations that I remember very well. So one of the first was being in, at that time I was in Bosnia-Herzegovina. That's a small country in Eastern Europe. At that time it was like close to 47 degrees, and there was actually nothing around me. I was just in the middle of nowhere. And I actually wanted to meet up with a friend later that day, but I was camping in an area where I had no reception. So I was just camping there, and I was completely by myself. And there was nothing around, like not even a car, like nothing. I was completely in the mountains, like nowhere. And in the evening, I was just preparing my meal. I was cooking some pasta. And while I was cooking, I was pouring the water inside that. And then I was like cooking that. The water was starting to boil. And then I wanted to drink something. And I noticed, oh, that was my last water that I just poured into that pasta. And when I was just looking on the Google Maps, I saw, okay, the next civilization is like 60 kilometers away. There's no way to get any water. See, and you've heard about that maybe if you don't drink any water you can survive for like 1 or 2 days. But if you're really in 45 degrees and there's no shade around you, these 1 or 2 days will reduce to just a couple of hours.
Can you die in a couple of hours?
I mean, I think I would have died if I wouldn't have any water at that time. Like, especially if you cycle, being physically active and the sun is just pouring down on you. Man, it's dangerous. Like, you might not die, but you might fall very weak or unconscious or something like that. And then if you're nowhere, like, and nobody finds you, then it's a dangerous situation. It was a really dangerous situation. So the next morning I got up at 4:30, I packed all my stuff, and I was just cycling. And in the afternoon I reached some place and found some water there, just some tap water, and I was just drinking it like a cow. Like, I was just sculling 2 liters of water immediately.
How does it feel when you drink water after that kind of thirst?
It feels good. You get to know the taste that water has.
You get to know the taste of the water, which is what?
It's life. Water tastes like life. Yeah. See, that's why I'm talking about soil. If there's no soil, there'll be no water, there'll be no life.
What else happened? What's the other dangerous situation?
It was mainly about water shortages. That's been a constant problem along the cycling trip, especially in countries like Iran when you're just cycling through the desert. Once it happened to me that I got bitten by a scorpion. That was in Baluchistan just before I entered the border to Pakistan. And again, my phone was dead at that moment, and I just didn't know what to do. Like, I was just sitting down for my morning meditation, and then I noticed like a huge pain in my leg.
As in, you didn't realize when the scorpion bit you?
I sat down on it, and then I lifted up my leg, and then I thought, like, it was a tiny scorpion. It was like a big ant almost. And I just didn't know what to do because I read stories about scorpions. In my country, there are no scorpions, so I'm totally not familiar with that. My first impulse was to get out my phone and Google what to do, but my phone was dead.
Do you get internet there?
No, I didn't have any network. My phone was out of battery at that moment.
So what did you do?
Well, I didn't know what to do, so I did not do my morning meditation, and I just kept cycling. And I was like, okay, am I gonna die or not? Like, I really didn't know. For 2 hours, I didn't know. Am I gonna die or not?
Because you don't know how venomous it is.
I didn't know. Yeah.
But how does it feel when a scorpion bites you?
It was like almost like a wasp sting. You know when a wasp stings you? Yeah. Like, it was just a very big pain that I had.
But what? Like, it burns?
It burns. Yeah.
It just feels like a big burn on your leg.
This particular scorpion, it was basically like a wasp sting, as I said, and then like it was hurting for even the next day. I still saw the bite mark there. But yeah, I was just horrified for 1 or 2 hours. Nothing happened in the end. But if you really don't know if you're gonna die or not now, because I had that thing in my mind, I don't know how venomous it is. So, but then I put up my solar charger on the back, and with that, I got my battery charged up again, and then I was Googling, and it said, okay, most of the scorpions in Baluchistan are not dangerous. So I was like, okay, big relief.
What is crossing borders like? Especially when you go into Iran, Pakistan, India.
For me, it's been very easy. I didn't need any visa until Iran. That was the first country I needed a visa for. But even that, I was just applying for it online. Those are all e-visas. So I just fill out the online form. Then half an hour later, I have the visa in my mail. And then I just go there. They just stamp it on my passport.
But you cycle across the border?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You cycle across the border?
I skipped the whole line of cars waiting there and truck drivers. I'll be the very first one at the border usually.
Have you been troubled anywhere?
No. The border crossing from Iran to Pakistan was a little chaotic, actually. I mean, mainly in my mind, it was super chaotic because I was very hungry at that time. Because when I was in like the last days of Iran, I was factually out of money. I didn't have any money because in Iran, credit cards are sanctioned. So I could not use my credit card that I used to use in every country. So I could only use cash, and that cash was running out. I mean, I had some euros that I could have exchanged, but I only had like a 100 euro bill. So I didn't want to exchange it for just one day in Iran. So I was like, okay, let me just live on whatever I have. And anyway, people were gifting me all the time. But in the last 2 days in Iran, that didn't work. And I was just super, super hungry. And I went to the border and people told me there's a supermarket there, but there was not. And and then I was just arriving with this visa on arrival thing. It was not a real visa. They had to issue that for me. So I was waiting there, and all kinds of people were surrounding me, looking at the bike, wanting to talk to me. And I was just fed up with the entire situation. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to eat something, you know.
What do people usually ask you?
Always the same questions. Like, even though I have this from Germany to India sign on the back of my bicycle, they always ask me, they read that and then they're like, where are you from? And where are you going? I don't know why.
Do you have to do a lot of research on non-dangerous cycling routes? I'm assuming there are some places that are crime infested or that, you know, have terrorists or something.
Yeah, well, not really like that. But when I was in Pakistan, it is, see, Pakistan is basically, it's illegal to cycle there as a foreigner on your own. You always have to have a police escort with you. And you just can't go anywhere you want. If I wanted to go into all these kacha roads, you know, along these rural areas, villages, they would not let me cycle there. And especially when I crossed the border from Iran into Pakistan, they said you cannot cycle here at all. You'll basically be a slow-moving target. That's what they told me.
For who?
For any kinds of, I don't know. It's very close to the border to Afghanistan. I mean, right now the war is over, but they still have this thing that you are not allowed to cycle there because there are all kinds of people living there who will just, you know, they have this kidnapping thing going on and this.
So they kidnap.
That's what they say. I think the last tourist kidnapping that happened in Pakistan was 2018, because now you can only cycle with police escort. That's a fixed thing. They will not let anybody cycle there. So since then, it has reduced drastically.
Did you feel protected with a police escort?
At first, I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. I have my own bodyguards with me all the time. But then I just thought it's so annoying.
But he was also cycling with you?
No, they were in a car behind me or on a motorbike. Either way.
You had to pay any money for this? No. Just the government provides?
They provide it for free. But still, all the bikepackers are getting so annoyed by this.
Did you have conversations with them?
If they speak English, yeah. But usually they don't.
Okay. So, what is the interiors of Pakistan like?
The interior of Pakistan? It's like India. It's just like India. It's a Muslim version of India, basically. I mean, it really is like that. Pakistan, the country itself is super beautiful. And the people there, they are so kind-hearted and so hospitable. And they were amongst the friendliest and most hospitable people that I ever met on the entire trip. And it was at that time I realized that they have this thing going on in Pakistan, that they have this belief. It really is like a firm belief that if a guest comes to their house, it's like it is a present from God, and they will treat you like God himself, and they will give you everything you need. And
yeah. There's a saying in India that goes Atiti Deva Bhava, which means the same thing. Like my guest is my God.
Right.
I think it's a subcontinental thing, taking away nothing that
Probably.
You said about Pakistan, but it is a subcontinental thing to be a good host. But I'm curious about Pakistan also because no one that I know has been to Pakistan. No one our age has been to Pakistan because I believe you end up getting certain visa issues as an Indian if
that might be there.
Yeah. Visit Pakistan. You're not able to go to America easily. That's what I've been told.
Right.
I don't know how true that is.
Right.
But I'm very curious about the interiors of Pakistan. What is specifically beautiful?
See, one thing that surprised me about Pakistan was actually how big the Hindu community is there.
Really?
They have so many temples and so many people that invited me. They had their own puja rooms and their little Krishnas and whatever Hindu gods they had there.
In the rural areas?
Yeah. This surprised me so much because I had no idea about this. For me, it was like a proper Muslim country. But there's so many. And they all want to go to India, actually. Whenever I went to any Hindu community, they were always like, oh, you're going to India. That's my dream country. I want to come along with you. Stuff like that.
And they're not able to leave?
They're not. They're basically stuck there. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think ever since the partition, they have, their family has been there and they can't really leave. I don't know, either they have no income or they have no passport or they're Pakistanis. They can't just go to India easily, right? They can't even get a tourist visa that easily. So for them, it's, Pakistan at some places, it's like India, but 50 to 100 years back.
Explain this more.
Like the way the streets are looking like, the way the people are living. I've been hosted by so many people who live this very simple life. Like they don't even have a bank account. They are just living in the fields, being supported by their parents. Just grow whatever food they can get and just live like that. And another aspect about Pakistan that very much, I don't know, it was not very easy for me to see was the women's situation there. Especially when you're in a rural village, you will never see any women. You're actually only seeing 50% of the population there. Whenever you are invited by someone, women they will immediately cover up and hide somewhere, and then they'll only bring tea to their husband, and then they will provide it. But you never even get to see the women. And also, whenever I talk to all these policemen who are cycling with me, I'm like they're asking me, "Are you married?" And then I'm like, "No, I'm not married. Are you married?" And they're like, "Yeah, I have one wife there and one wife in another place." That was a very strange concept for me, just having like multiple wives at once. And sometimes I don't know. I feel like I don't want to be a woman in Pakistan. At the bigger cities, it's fine, but at the rural places, sometimes it was, I don't know. It's a different culture for sure. But I'm not so sure if all the women there are so happy.
Let's talk about Iran, because right now Iran has very intense branding on a world stage, and I think as we speak, it's the beginning of Feb, and there's a conflict going on between Pakistan and Iran right now. And generally, Iran and USA have always been at loggerheads. So the branding we get of Iran in traditional media is very negative. But I'm sure there's two sides to the story. So what's Iran like when you actually travel through it?
See, my experience of Iran, whenever I meet people there, they were always making negative remarks on their government. They were always like, man, this dictatorship, and they all dislike their government. I mean, and there were a lot of demonstrations, a lot of protests happening there recently, and the government is very good at keeping these things controlled and not letting it, being published in the media.
Do you actually sense some sort of rebellion happening soon?
I mean, it's a very peaceful country. People there are they're very nice, smoking their opium, Yeah, it happened all the time. Whenever I got invited to a family, they all took out their shisha or bong. I don't know how you call it.
Was it hashish or opium?
No, it's opium. Yeah, they smoke a lot of opium there. Yeah, they do.
Have you ever experienced?
Hashish was mainly in Pakistan.
Really?
Even at the border, when I was standing at the Pakistan border with all these security around me, there was another bikepacker coming there, and he said, "Hey, do you want to smoke something with me?" It's fine. Even he got it from the police. Even the police was rolling it.
So there's a hashish culture.
There is a hashish culture in Pakistan. Yeah, I heard it from many people. They just crossed the border, and the policeman asked, "Do you have any drugs with you?" They're like, no. Okay, then we give you. I heard stories like that.
Then we give you some drugs.
Yeah.
Damn. You got offered it a lot?
A lot, yeah. And not so much by police, but
by locals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just this thing. When you sit down, they will offer you tea and some sweets, and then they will roll something. Like, is that a cigarette?
It's not a cigarette, bro. It's nicer than a cigarette.
As I say, I had too much of that stuff when I was young, so these days I always rejected it. So.
Tell me more about Iran, bro. I still want to know more.
Iran was really nice. For me, that was one of the most interesting places I visited, actually. In terms of just cycling through the desert, that was such an experience for me. I've never been to any desert country like that before. And just, if you just cycle 10 days through the desert with nothing around you, that was an experience, man.
Why?
Because, I don't know, everything is just happening in your mind. You're in the middle of nowhere, and all that you see is just rocks and some cars and some flies, and that's it. There is some purity about the desert. If there's just nobody around there, no humans, you don't have any interaction, you don't really see a human face for a couple of days.
Where did you enter Iran from? Which country? What?
From Armenia, actually.
Armenia,
yeah.
And before Armenia, it's Turkey.
Georgia. Turkey, Georgia, Armenia, Iran. Yeah.
You want to talk about Georgia and Armenia? I'm assuming they're kind of similar as countries.
I've actually been at a student exchange in Armenia when I was 16 years old. So I had a bunch of friends in the capital city, which is Yerevan. And so for me, when I was there, a lot of childhood memories came up. And Armenia was actually my favorite country on the trip.
Why?
Because of these childhood memories that came up. And I visited a lot of old friends that I had there. you know, when you're a child, like everything was so exciting and so nice, and then you come back there as an adult, and you go through all of this again, and then all the good food, and Armenia had such a pure nature as well. The mountains, pristine rivers. I could just, put my bottle on the river and just collect the water from there and drink it.
Because the population is small?
Small population, and they have these mountain springs everywhere, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous country. Wild horses just roaming around everywhere.
Wild horses?
Yeah, man.
Do you cycle near them?
Yeah.
Are they dangerous?
No.
They're chill.
They're very chill.
Is there
like the cows in India, just a little more active. It's see, if you just see a wild creature like that and you cycle next to it, and you look at it, and it's just cycling in its own way. you have some connection with that, and I talk to a lot of animals when I'm on my own. I do that, and even to the cows in India. Sometimes I just talk to them.
Dude, you're one of the most well-traveled people I've met technically on this show. I want to talk to you about Germany in general. Like the average German person. If he or she finds out your story, what would they think? Is this a normal thing in Germany where you guys are adventurous?
I met so many German travelers on the road, especially cyclists. I think these days it's becoming more of a normal thing, yeah. Because there's so many stories already of people who have done all kinds of nonsense like that, like traveling the world on a bicycle. And I think also for us, it's a very normal thing that once you finish high school, you will go to some foreign country like Australia or New Zealand, spend a year there, and then you start your university. Even I have done that. When I was 19, I just bought myself a one-way ticket to Australia, and I traveled for 3 years after that. 1 year in Australia, half year in New Zealand, 3 years in Southeast Asia, and then came back to Germany, studied for a little bit, and then went to India. But there's so many people like that. If you go to New Zealand, Auckland or Melbourne, Sydney, all these places in Down Under, they're full of German kids who just finished their high school and then they're going there and traveling.
What was that like? Traveling through Australia and New Zealand?
I was so young at that age, and for me, it's been a huge relief of being out of school and especially being out of my drug-addicted circle of friends at that time.
What drugs were they doing?
Heroin, meth.
You had friends who were doing heroin and meth?
Many, yeah.
What happened to them in life later?
Many turned out to be quite fine. I had a girlfriend back then when I was 16, 17, 18, and she was not really doing good. She was very badly addicted to heroin and meth. And so because of her and other reasons, I was like, okay, this circle of friends is not conducive to me. Let me go to Australia, which is the furthest away place I could get at that time. And then when I came back 3 years later, I actually visited her, and she went through rehab and all these detox programs. She was fine. But I know many people who are not doing fine still.
Like what happens in life?
They just keep doing drugs, and they become fat, or they become just very unhealthy, and they just live like junkies on the streets, man. I mean, in Germany, there is a social system which backs them up, which, I mean, in India, I think if you're landed on heroin, you'll just end up in the streets and you might die tomorrow. In Germany, you have a wide array of programs that are supported, given by the government to support you. So some made use of that and some made not. So,
You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Have you done anything crazy? Like when you were much younger?
Man, I've did so much crazy stuff. I mean,
I'm asking you this from a perspective and curiosity and general life experiences, because you talking about something you've done or something you've experienced in the past is not going to encourage people.
No,
to
definitely
do it.
not.
I mean, we'll put that out for sure. That's not what we're trying to do here. I'm just trying to understand the why behind it. I'm also trying to understand the what of the experience, like what happens.
Okay, so if we talk about German culture in general, German has this huge beer drinking culture, and along with that, if you're being initiated into drinking at an age of 14, which is like most people get initiated into drinking at that age by your parents or by your school classmates, you get in contact with very hard drugs at an early age, because alcohol is a very hard drug. I mean, it's the only drug which I know where if you drink it and take it, and the next day you'll be like, oh, I don't even remember what happened yesterday. Do you know any other drug like that? Where you just completely lose your memory? It's crazy, actually, if you think about it.
It's the only legal and socially accepted drug.
Right.
No one knows why it's socially accepted, but it just is.
It's a culture. It's a cultural thing in Germany, right?
All over the world.
Yeah. So people are doing that. So, you know, the legal drinking age in Germany is 16. So when I was 16, I just put my 1 or 2 euros, which is like 100 rupees on the table, and I get like 2 bottles of beer and 1 bottle of wine. Done. You can get smashed. And that's what we did. Back then in school at like 11th or 12th grade, we would like every 30 minutes break from school, we would just go into the park and just get smashed and then go back into class.
Go back into class.
A very normal thing, though.
Does the teacher know you're drunk?
They know.
But they're okay with it.
There's nothing much they can do. See, especially my school was, it was very normal for all kinds of people to stand outside of the bus stop and they're all smoking weed and all these things. The teachers knew about it. But they're okay as long as we just smoke weed, because there was also a lot of harder stuff going on there in the parks, like meth, heroin, all these things were very, very common. See, when I was 16, I had more problems to get tobacco than get weed or meth or all these things.
Really?
Because these things are not legal, right? So anybody can just, you know, in the black market, they're just available. They'll sell them to everybody. If it would have been legalized, then, you know, there would have been some control over it, and you can only give it to people like 18 years or older.
That's a nice European perspective. I don't think that.
I'm not sure if it works like that in India, but yeah. Okay, we can leave that out again. I don't want to encourage anybody to see, but I remember this very clearly. When I was, I think, 19 years old, I actually made a list with all these drugs that I took in my life. And it was more than 25.
Really?
So I tried all kinds of stuff that was available to me.
You've tried meth?
Once, yeah.
What had happened?
Just being very awake.
Like
not
coffee?
Sleeping for... yeah. like 20 cups of coffee at a time. You can call it like that, yeah.
Do you regret it?
No, I mean, see, my girlfriend back then, she was basically addicted to meth. Yeah, you can call it like that. So... I tried it once just to see what she's up to all the time.
You smoke it, right?
You can smoke it, you can snore it, you can even like push it in your veins. I know a lot of people who push it in their veins.
Which one did you do?
Friends of mine.
No. When you took it, what did you do?
I just snorted.
So what do you feel like when you snort it? Like, do you immediately get the high?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's just lasting for like. I wasn't really ecstatic or anything. I didn't know. I only done meth once, so I can't really talk much about it. But for me, it's just like being very awake for 1 or 2 nights.
So what is the charm of it? Like, why do people choose to do it?
I think because it can very easily integrate into everyday life. You can go to school with it. You can do everything with it. And you'll be so much more effective when you're high on meth. Right? But then after a certain time, it'll just wear you out and it'll completely destroy you.
Your teeth start falling out.
Yeah.
Did you see that with your friends?
Some of them, yeah.
Like their faces change and
what these pickles and pimples. And
really?
Yeah. Their skin becomes it goes into very bad shape, and things like that are happening.
They also age faster, I think.
They do. Yeah. See, for me, this whole thing was like, this all happened when I was in school. And when I was 18, 19, I had so many friends who were addicted to these kind of substances. So I thought, okay, I need to leave this behind me, because if I don't leave this kind of place where I'm from, I will also fall into that trap. So that's when I traveled to Australia and New Zealand at that time. I was 19, I was still a kid. And for me, that was like, yeah, party. I'm free from parents, free from everything. I can just go. So at that time also, I took so many drugs, MDMA, I don't know, mushrooms, and whatever I could get in my hands. I was just taking it. And I was always on, traveling on the beaches with some girls, having a cocktail in my hand, always like living that kind of life. But even like I was doing this kind of lifestyle for 1.5 years. And then I was traveling in Indonesia. And I remember this very well. This was also a time when I had some stomach infection when I was in Asia for the first time of my life. And then my health really started to decline. And I noticed, okay, I have to, get rid of all these drugs that I'm taking. But then I went back to Germany to get some treatment for these stomach parasites that I had. And I was still hanging out with my friends at that time. And so I was just visiting them. I was getting out of the bus and they were just put a pill in my mouth and like, okay, let's go party. So I had no choice about it, you know. That's the kind of friends I had back then.
And this was MD.
Yeah, MDMA.
Ecstasy,
Yeah.
MDMA, which is a party drug.
Yeah.
Which you used to like. I mean, you see a lot of MDMA honestly in Mumbai as well.
Yeah.
And I think people usually take it before concerts because.
Yeah, that's what I did back then. Yeah. Festivals.
What happens when you take it?
For me, it was always like I had this huge upsurge of love within me. I was just falling in love with everybody. I was just going around festivals, hugging everybody, kissing everybody. Man, I love you so much.
Because you actually feel it because of the rise of oxytocin?
Yeah, this whole serotonin levels in your brain, they will just start decreasing like so much. They say that if you have like a proper MDMA trip, the level of serotonin in your brain will go up like 2,000-3,000 times of the normal concentration. It's so sick what's going on in the brain. But then the next day, you'll be just completely depleted of all these luck hormones. So, and that's it. And then the next day, you'll just feel miserable.
You get a downer.
That's why I stopped taking it.
What does the downer feel like?
It just feels like you don't have any happiness within you anymore. Like you just, I don't know, man. You're just, nothing is fun. You just want the next pill to have fun again.
Let's switch up the conversation entirely. You've done the Sadhguru Inner Engineering program. Did you feel a rush from something in the program which was similar to like a drug rush?
Absolutely. And that was the thing that so intrigued me about this yoga. Because, I mean, up to that point, I was actively smoking weed with all my friends. Even after the program, still I continued, but it largely receded. But let me come to that later. The first time I mean, I didn't physically meet Sadhguru, but he was like, I was there sitting in the inner engineering program. I was listening to his talks. And then in the end, I was initiated to this Kriya Yoga, to this very powerful practice. During the initiation, I had this intense upsurge of energy within myself. And my whole experience of life shifted because suddenly I knew I have a technology within myself to create all of these things that I was getting from drugs right now within me, just by meditation, which was something I never even thought about that. And that is something that so amazed me that before that, I always had to go on outside adventures. I had to travel here and there and take all these drugs or girls' parties. I had to do so many things to become happy. But suddenly I just had a technology to become happy within myself. That was such a turning point in my life. Because now I could just sit here and experience this whole life throbbing within myself just by doing this 20-minute meditation. And so from that moment onwards, slowly my life got so transformed. And I know I can show you thousands of people who have come out of drugs just like that. Just with this 20-minute meditation that Sadhguru is offering in the Inner Engineering program.
What do you see in those 20 minutes?
Don't think of it like I'm having any optics or hallucinations or any stuff like that. It's not going to happen. I don't know. Maybe for somebody it's going to happen. Different people have different kinds of experiences. After that, I was walking around in the hall. Some people cried their hearts out. Some people were laughing, absolutely ecstatic. Some people just sat there. For me, it was just like I was just inhaling life and exhaling it. And that's the closest thing that I can, in terms of words, that I can use to describe it. Let's see. I keep saying that. I mean, I'm sure you have experienced your fair share of spirituality, and you already had some spiritual people here on this podcast. You've talked to Sadhguru. So not everything can really be put into words, and mind is not really the best tool to describe what's going on there. I say, if you really want to experience what Shambhavi Mahamudra Kriya is, what is being offered in the Inner Engineering program, you just go there and do it. I can't really explain to you what it is. But if you look at what's being offered there and how it transformed the people, it's phenomenal, actually.
How did you first hear about it as a German living in Southeast Asia?
Yeah, no, that was, I was just listening to one podcast like this of Sadhguru. He was talking to some quantum physicist scientists, and they were talking about the creation of the universe and all this amazing physics that I have no idea about. And it just amazed me because Sadhguru was talking so clearly without having any educational background, any university background. So I was just amazed by this. Like, how does he know all these things So that in the end, the scientist was only asking questions to Sadhguru and Sadhguru answering these things. It was just like, okay, so there's this mystic, this spiritual Indian yogi sitting here, but he's speaking so logically, and it just made sense to me. And before that, I never had anything to do, like as I already said, right? Like just partying, traveling. I never had anything to do with yoga, spirituality. I didn't know a thing about it. But it just amazed me how clearly he was talking. It made sense to me. And I think that was at a time where I was genuinely interested in understanding things about the universe and about myself. Because that was also a time I got into touch with the intellectual context in university, and I was getting out of all this drug lifestyle. And I just wanted to know more things.
How did the drug lifestyle phase change you? Like when you put yourself through that many substances, something has to change in the head.
See, worst experience not in terms of health, but just this how you feel within yourself. Man, I hope my parents are not watching this podcast.
No.
But
see, I respect you talking about this, and I think it's going to help people. I'm asking you all the questions from that perspective as well.
See, on the last day of school, like it's I'm not sure how it's in India, but in Germany it was always like a very big celebration. Like you have your last school day and everybody's partying, and so that day I was on, I think, 6 or 7 different substances at once. So like there's some very strong opioids and some very strong uppers and downers and everything mixed, everything combined. And then we went out, we went drinking somewhere, playing some drinking games, and I just completely can't remember anything that happened that night. The next morning I woke up in an entirely different city and I had no idea how I even got there.
Damn.
And that thing was just that I got up in the morning and immediately I checked my pocket and I saw, okay, do I have more of this stuff? And I did not have. And in that moment I felt so miserable because I did not have. But I felt even more miserable because I knew that if I would have had more of this powder, the first thing would have been to snore it before I do anything else, before I even get up out of bed or anything. So then I noticed, man, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I so dependent on this? Like, when I was a kid, I was just happy climbing trees, doing nothing. We were just happy. Now I am depending on all these things. So that just this, just this feeling of, being so dependent on something. That itself was a very bad experience for me. In terms of health, I was always fine. And,
You took care of yourself even then, health-wise?
See, I'm not even like I've tried all of these things, but for me, it was always more like experience hunting. It was up until that point that I just told you, I never felt like I'm really addicted to anything. And even after the experience, I tried to stop all these things. I just smoked some weed and stuff like that. But all these harder drugs, I stopped them completely. So I'm not like I was never like a complete junkie or anything. I was never really like in that kind of mode. But I know many people who are. For me, it was always more like I just wanted to experience. I want to go experience hunting. That's what these drugs meant to me. That's why I was also always more inclined towards these psychedelic drugs like magic mushrooms, LSD. I think these psychedelic substances, they've also started a huge spiritual quest in my life. I mean, even though Sadhguru is always saying that these things are not really needed to get anywhere spiritually, I think that at least 25% of the people who are living there in the ashram, or people who got initiated on a spiritual path, they would not be there without having that experience of losing yourself into psychedelic substances before, because they can open a certain door for you. But then if you get hooked on it, and if you think that is the thing, it'll not get you anywhere, because it's like these kind of drugs are like you look through a window and you see, okay, there is something more to life.
You know how some songs and some music is healing towards your heart? Like mantras, for example. If you really listen to them, they're healing. But they'll only heal you as deep as you open yourself up to them. Right. It's the same with nature. But the thing is, in the modern day, most of our minds are not capable of opening up to nature completely. We're always thinking of something else. If you truly enter a meditative state with nature, a lot can happen. I think these substances allow you to focus single-handedly upon nature in many ways. Fair to say?
Agreed.
And you come out a different person after that.
Yeah, agreed.
Is there anything you want to talk about in terms of experiences? Have you gone for a shamanic ceremony?
No.
Never?
See, when I was young and in this drug lifestyle, it was more like experience hunting. I kind of ticked off all of these drugs one by one. Okay, like this drug is giving me this drug is giving me that, and this and this and that. And then after that, I was kind of done with it. And I could have gone for some shamanic things like that later. But at that time, I was already at a part of my life where I thought it's not needed anymore. I already had this yoga going on within me. So I don't, right now, I completely lost this interest in even smoking weed or anything like that. Because I've had certain experiences, especially in the more advanced meditation programs that Sadhguru is offering, like the Bhava Spandana and the Shunya program. I've had spiritual experiences there, which compared to smoking weed or taking mushrooms, it's like these things are like kindergarten, actually. Even Sadhguru keeps saying as a promotion for his Bhava Spandana that you might have, experienced LSD or DMT or magic mushrooms. You might have done all these things, but never in your life you could have imagined that something like this can actually happen within a human being. And that held very true for me when I went for the Bhava Spandana program. My experience of life in that Isha Yoga program, it was just completely out of the world. So ever since then, I'm not really interested in all these things anymore.
Did you experience DMT back in the day?
That is one thing that I never took. No, okay. Simply because it wasn't available to me. I would have done it back in the days if I could have. But
LSD?
Yeah.
What do you remember about your LSD trip?
I had many trips.
Something shifts in you?
It's just the way I opened up, like completely lost myself. It's like the first time somebody asked me, okay, how was the trip? Like after the first time I took it, I told them, for me, it was like I was on a boat on the ocean, and then the boat was gone, and then the ocean was gone, and then myself was just gone. And I experienced this profound sense of selflessness, just merging with existence. See, that's what yoga is essentially trying to do with you. Yoga means union, right? So actually, if you are a yogi, I would say you're on a constant LSD trip.
Yeah, that's true. It begins by you feeling calm, but that's only like level 1. There's probably 100 levels above that.
It ends by feeling merged. At least for me, that was basically my experience of the Bhava Spandana program. Feeling merged with everything around me, with the people around me. Just looking at the moon, I became the moon. Looking at a flower, I became the flower. This all sounds idiotic when I talk about it, but so for somebody who doesn't like, for my German friends who are seeing this, they will have no idea about all this spirituality nonsense. Yeah, that's what I say. Like, mind cannot really, you'll just make a fool of yourself if you're trying to explain these things logically, but these things can very much be experienced.
I think in 2024, there are listeners for these conversations. People want to hear these things. Not just, we covered the whole drug side of it just as an experiential conversation. Mm-hmm. But the actual core of what we're trying to say is yoga. Yeah. It's about yoga.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you about your friends back in Europe. Generally speaking, or I'd probably reframe that as just European people, the West generally. And their spiritual incline. What's happening there? Because what we're told here is that a lot of the West is waking up to Eastern spiritual thought.
Yeah, sure.
I want to talk about people our age, especially. We're almost the same age. So is it just with people our age? Or are there a lot of older people also waking up to it? So one of the reasons I'm asking you this question in the first place is because the narrative we get here is that people are becoming unreligious in Europe. People's interest in religion is...
They already are.
It's already unreligious.
See, I grew up without even having a concept of God in my family. In my hometown, there are probably 3 or 4 people even going to church, and they're like 80 plus kind of people. I think that is especially the case in East Germany, because we've been a communist country the last 50 years. But even like, I don't know, Germany and all over Europe, they're losing their church members so quickly. So in most of the places, like especially my circle of friends, there's not a single person who's religious.
Bro, but don't you think that religion acts as the anchor to kind of stabilize your life and your mind in so many ways? Because that's the reason a lot of young people in India are waking up to religion. Because it's like an anchor in life. But I mean, if you disagree with me, I'm okay with it. I just want to know the thought.
See, I think when we talk about religion, I mean, I would say religion, for me, it basically means it's a fixed set of belief systems. Like you believe there's Jesus, or you believe there's, I don't know, Krishna or a flying spaghetti monster, whatever you believe. It does not need to have anything to do with your experience. You just believe something. So that's why I never got the taste of it. It always felt unlogical to me and to all my friends around me. So that's why I never saw anybody in my circle of friends was going for it. Like I suddenly have a Indian guru, you know, I become spiritual. Now I'm sitting there. Before that, I used to smoke weed with them. Now I'm sitting there doing my meditation. And they'll just laugh at me. But I'm fine because I know it works within myself. So I don't care what people are saying about me. I just know it works. So I think that's what people need to experience. If it will work for them, it will make logical sense for them. And then they will have an experience out of that. That's when they will go for it. If you just make them believe something, I think in this generation, they're too logical, especially Europeans and Germans. They're too intellectual, and you can't just sell them anything. So that's why this whole Christianity is on such a decline, in especially in where I'm from in Germany. But people are not that anchored, as you say. People will always look for something higher in their life. That's how human beings are made.
Do you see a rise of mental health issues back in the West? Because I would attribute that to a lack of spiritual thought amongst a lot of other things.
Oh, definitely.
There's a lack of spirituality there.
There's a lack of spirituality, and basically there's a lack of proper understanding of oneself. Because all we get pushed through in the school system is just intellectual work. We learn how to do maths, we learn all these outside technology things, but we don't learn a thing about ourselves. And I see that this is something that you have very much in place in India. I mean, everybody here knows at least a little bit of yoga, no? A little bit of meditation. Somehow the culture is like that. Somehow you grow up with that. In Germany, it's just nothing like that. Maybe they'll teach you a little bit of Jesus, or even that didn't reach me at all. So they will naturally, if they want to explore, the first thing that they have available is drugs. So they're all going for that. And it's...
The drug usage happens because they're actually looking for answers.
They're looking for experiences. They're looking for answers. But they will not find them in whatever religion they have, if they even have a religion. Many have not. And they will not find them in the drugs also. And then they are just grinded by this whole, work system. And especially these Western countries, everything is so punctual. Everything is so structured. And you have to be on time, it can be good in a certain way. The service, the customer service, customer care, all these things, the support and service and public security and health services, these are all very, very good. Everything is so well organized in the West. But people are immensely suffering that because they are being pushed through the system without knowing how to handle themselves. If you upscale your activity without upscaling your own capability and your own inner experience, then you'll just suffer. And that's what's hugely happening in the West right now.
Mr. Zülske. This was a great episode.
Well, thank you, Ranveer.
I wish you all the luck, brother. I think you did a lot by just speaking this openly. Lots of people who gained a lot from your honest conversation. A lot of people come here and don't open up the way you did, but it was done with good intention, man. So a lot of respect and love for you.
Oh, thanks for that, Ranveer. I just hope it'll have some impact and some people will check out safesoil.org.
Yeah.
Check out a little bit.
You handed this to me, which is for the Safe Soil movement, something we all need to know more about. It's great work that the Isha Foundation and Sadhguru are doing. And I'm just really happy I met you, bro. Very interesting guy.
Thank you, Ranveer. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story.
My pleasure.
That was the episode for today. Honestly, I'm always looking for foreign nationals to speak to on TRS because you always get fresher, newer perspectives when you speak to someone from a different country. I genuinely enjoy these explorer-based conversations because I feel like even to become an explorer, your life pre-exploration has to be very, very interesting and tough in some ways. That's why you're chasing exploration in the first place. I enjoyed the heck out of this episode. I'd love to know what you guys thought. Tell me in the comment section. I hope this episode has reached people outside of India and outside of Indian culture as well. It was a pleasure meeting Konstantin Bhai, and I hope to speak to him again very, very soon. on TRS.